I'm Andrea Reyes from Northeast Texas Community College. Thanks for viewing in on our virtual part of our conference. For thousands of years, people toiled during the day and told their stories by night. Culture arose in the darkness, or at least in the flickering of candelabras. And then about 160 years ago, your great-great-great-grandparents, or something like that, the Victorian generation, found out that if you direct a flame into quicklime, or calcium oxide, an alkaline substance, it would produce a torrent of white light. You know, suddenly it's not culture in the darkness, it's culture alive for a whole community, moving in images, in color. How exciting! Yeah, kind of daunting though too. Our NTCC production here today for the NCHC is really about institutional courage, the conference theme in the beginning. And Aristotle one time said that right next to honor was courage, so it certainly is appropriate to talk about institutional courage. But can we really get in the limelight when there's agencies like Hollywood paying $150 million to get in an hour of the limelight? Kind of scary. Well, who does get in the limelight? Well, churches, thanks be to God. The institutional rigidities that we face in modern life find an answer in worship and in expressions of liturgy. Certainly Hollywood has a lock on things. And certainly we find too that football does. Oh yes, football. Oh, action sports, I should say. You know, what do people really crave? You know, athletic, perfection, attractive young people, dramatic stories, muscular heroism, kinetic movement in real time. And by the way, if you do a film, that's the kind of stuff you want in your film. It really attracts people. And culture, and football does have cultural significance. I mean, it shows that if you work hard and you really try, you can succeed. And yet, how much really significant constructive engagement does footballers, say Hollywood, have night after night with all this limelight that we have in modern society? In 2016, we did a film on Mary Kay. Mary Kay just happens to be probably the foremost female entrepreneur of all time. She had no help from males at all, and she had a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. But at one point in her life, in 1947, she was attending the University of Houston, getting F's on her report card. She had a medical diagnosis that indicated she would never walk again. She was divorced. She had 3 children. Now, how would you get out of that kind of situation? Well, actually, you could watch our film, our 2016 film now on YouTube, NTCC Films, and you could find out what happened to Mary Kay. Actually, she said that her church was very important to her, but there were other issues too, and you can kind of scope that out. But my point is that you really don't get this kind of constructive engagement in what passes as the limelight oftentimes. And if individuals don't get that kind of constructive engagement, certainly communities have a hard time with that as well. Communities are important because that's where you, of course, live and work. And communities can often be thrown around, can lose money, can lose regional patriotism, so people don't want to be there. Our community is hard pressed. We're kind of in a semi-rural, semi-urban environment in Northeast Texas. We had a press to the south of us that 20 years ago was worth $2 million. Today it's worth nothing. Facebook is taking over from the journalists. The physicians are being pushed around. Some of them feel regulated out of business. Our 3 great corporations in poultry, mining, and steel have all gone through Chapter 11. You know, obviously, the community needs something to center our thoughts and allow us something to talk about. And yet this is the same time, and as I noted, the press seems to be going out. Regional restaurants are taking a hit. What can be done? And this is where our idea, I hope, of niche cinema and an honors program doing it kind of makes sense. Now, of course, you could rely on Hollywood to do something like that. We actually have 2 films on Northeast Texas that Hollywood produced that were fair blockbusters, Bonnie and Clyde, and also The Great Debaters. But you know, you could be like saying New York Upper West Side. New York City's Upper West Side actually has over 50 films that are about it. You know, West Side Story, Spider-Man, wow, that's amazing. But if you look through like the whole vita of the Upper West Side's films, what you discover mostly, and this is what you get too if you watch Northeast Texas in film, you get a lot of violence, of course, but you get films like American Psycho, Death Wish, Fatal Attraction, Ghostbusters, And also Rosemary's Baby, which is about a demonic cult. I mean, if you really watch all these films about New York City's Upper West Side, you think the whole neighborhood is filled with a bunch of psychos, demon worshippers, divorcees, and people with drug addictions, etc. Obviously, drama sells. What would your theater department maybe come through for you? Well, probably not, because theater departments, they work with scripts that are already written from the best sources, like in New York and London. What about if your nearby university has a film department, like the University of Southern California? Wow, they got 72,000 films in their film bank. Unfortunately, you have to go visit their archives, and they're not really too interested in releasing kind of these quirky student films they do. The department does not really come together. Hey, you've got a community in honors, you've got a community of donors, you've got a community of alumni, you've got a community of students. What about bringing that group together by doing a film? Well, let's go with no for a minute. Let's say, hey, you don't have the scholars that can actually do the scholarship that could write an original script. You don't have a few $1,000s to spend on camcorders and boom mics because you're going to spend all that in other things. The average honors program certainly has a wherewithal, I think, to afford this. But let's say no for a while. Let's say no to the idea that you have people in your honors program that can take the tech requirements. Let's say no to the idea that you could get together for a little bit during the summertime. Let's say no to the idea that your community needs anything special going on. I think you can kind of see that actually the objections, the fright about getting in the limelight can actually be overruled, can't they? What we have found is that there is a kind of ultimate pinball effect that can go on when you get into films. I don't know if you've ever played ultimate pinball, but when you get enough bonus points, the ball starts going up, banks, jackpots, and awards. You start like winning all these awards at once. Ding, 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 ding. It's kind of fun. But we have found that in terms of honorary momentum, doing these films, and some of my coworkers who will fill us in a little bit more on that, this in just a little bit. These films tend to work when we write letters of recommendation, when we talk about leadership, when we talk about public service, when we talk about scholarship, when we talk about technical alacrity. These films have really worked for, as in our title, a bonanza, an honorary bonanza. We're very thankful that of the 1,700 community colleges in the United States, that we are #1 in Augusta White Awards by the Phi Theta Kappa. You can look on their website, they have all the previous awards. Among among colleges of under 5,000, in terms of the Jack Kent Cooke Mega Scholarship, a very sought after award, we are also #1 since 2010. And I like to think that this windfall really is coming from the films. 8 of 10 of our Jack Kent Cookes, for instance, were all very active in films. I remember they were like directors or like producers or the stars and the production. And we have been able to do feature-length films too. So we can present these to the community in the limelight. Beyond student awards, though, I think there are 3 major ways you can kind of leverage these films and make them work for you. And if you ever have any questions, be sure to email me at ayox@ntcc.edu. That's AYOX for Andrew Yox at ntcc.edu. The first way I would say is that you can have a base rather than a constituency. You need donors. You need donors who believe in you. And you can get that base when you do films about things that they are really interested in. A lot of these people are concerned about if you're a denominational college, your denomination, or your region. They want to build that up. This is a great way to really connect with people that can support you. Second of all, you can have a team rather than a bureaucracy. A bureaucracy is an environment where everyone is kind of in competition with one another. Students evaluate professors, professors evaluate students. We're all kind of a little cagey. But what happens with a film? We all come together for something common. What's the hardest substance? Diamond. Diamonds have tetrahedral covalent carbon bonding. That sharing of electrons, that sharing of a project can really make a difference in helping to make a team come alive in your honors program. And finally, rather than having an honors program that is kind of epiphenomenal and kind of peripheral to your community, and a lot of people think that colleges and universities are just sponges, they're just soaking up all this money, you don't know what's going on. Why not be central? Why not let people look at you in a film and see who you are and work on the centrality of your honors program? I think that this will really take things to a higher level. I'm sure you're maybe wondering at this point, well, what is it like for students? And so I would like to move from this preliminary series of remarks to Jalyn English. Jalyn was our producer in last year's film on Adina de Zavala, and he is the director in this year's film, which we had on a famous industrialist from our region, Bo Pilgrim. So Jalyn?
Hello, I'm Jalyn here. I've been here for about 2 years, I believe, or actually a year. But I've had some wonderful times working with the NTCC Honor Films. So when I graduated from high school, I was a little uncertain about how my college life would be, and I thought it would be super overwhelming. So my plan was to just take the classes and skip any extracurricular activities. Regardless though, I went to last year's film meeting at this place in Mount Pleasant, Texas called Laura's Cheesecake Factory. And it was because I actually done research for last year's film earlier, and I wasn't sure if I was already part of the crew, so I wanted to see if I could get out. Instead, the director, Jacob Lambie, actually convinced me to be the producer and play a few parts, because I had a good southern accent and I actually had some video editing skills. So I joined, and it was rather pleasant experience. I learned about the second siege of the Alamo and how Adina de Zavala actually preserved it, the Alamo I mean. And I also learned some very interesting film techniques. I can now watch a movie and I'm like, oh, I know how they did that. And I also made some great new friends, and we also went to places like Jefferson, Texas, where they have one of the best B&B places. And there were a few challenges that I had faced while being the producer. One was actually uploading all those shots, because we took like a lot. We made a lot of mistakes and we had to retake and retake. So that took a while. And one of our main challenges was audio, because we didn't really have a lot of equipment to deal with that. And we recorded in places such as an air-conditioned area and even outside. So there was a lot of interference. So I had to add captions to sort of mess with the audio, and that also took a while. But one of the biggest things I hated was that after I finished the film, I had to export it, and that took about 5 to 6 hours. And sometimes it wouldn't even work. I would end up getting an error and I had to start all over. But overall, I believe I did really good, and so did everyone else. So this year's film was covering Bo Pilgrim. He was sort of a Fortune 400, I believe, or yes, company, and he sold chicken. He was actually surpassed on Tyson for a brief time, and he contributed a lot to Mount Pleasant, Texas. He even gave jobs to Hispanic immigrants. So this year, I was asked to be director, and I was automatically on board. I didn't really need a lot of convincing. And I also had a lot of help from others, such as this year's unit producer/producer, Brian Ramirez. In case you want to know what a unit producer is, it's someone who sort of sets the date and time and location of where we're going to record. But Brian Ramirez went beyond that. He actually helped me figure out how we're going to do this, how are we going to record, what angles, what props, and he really stepped up. And that's what I really like about these film projects. They're not about just telling a story that happened a long time ago. It's about sort of stepping up and braving the outer world and whatever we're facing. and also enlighten people of other views and perspectives and how things might be. Because during this time, what we need right now is to face our fears and go against ignorance. All right, so now I want to introduce you to last year's film star who played as Adina de Zavala and also wrote a story about Adina as well. I'd like to introduce you to Maritza Quinones.
Hello, my name is Maritza Quinones, and my project was about Adina de Zavala, and I was also the star of the film of last year. So I started my research last summer at the Dolph Frisco Center, and it took us a few hours to finish all the research. So after doing research, my professor asked me if I wanted to take the role of Adina de Zavala for the film, and I said yes. So after, I honestly didn't think I could do it because I had never acted before, and I am a very shy person. So yeah, but I wanted to get out of my comfort zone, and I just gave it a try, and I think it came out great at the end. So after all the research, I tried to put myself in Adina's shoes, because Adina was a strong woman she was a strong Hispanic woman who went through a rough life. So, and it was at a time when women didn't have the right to vote, and women didn't have a voice. And Adina de Zavala didn't have a husband. So she was independent, and her whole story was very inspirational to me because I can relate to her. And yeah, so I wanted to honor Adina de Zavala. So after all the research, I thought that maybe I could inspire others to be a part of the film. So yes, what I really liked about Adina de Zavala was that she stood up for what she believed in, and she didn't let racial differences affect her confidence. So yeah, so now I would like to present to you Andrea Reyes, the PTK Coordinator and Honors.
Hello, as she mentioned, my name is Andrea Reyes. I've been working with Honors for about 2 or 3 years now, and I have worked on 2 films now. So I'd like to tell you a little bit of what I see from behind the scenes and also as an actress. The film is the first project done before most of the scholars take their first seminar for honors, becoming sort of an honors orientation. Most do not know each other or have ever even done a project as large as this one. Once filming starts, you can really tell the nervousness the students have, the directors, and after 3 or 4 scenes, you can really tell how the confidence has shot up. Not only for the actors, but also for those handling the equipment. Students will readily await the instruction of the director while cheering each other on and helping with costumes and equipment. The scenes are often finished before expected because of how everyone is so readily willing to work together. I've also noticed that they are always willing to coordinate information. They quickly exchange their contact information. They readily dine with each other. They readily offer rides for one another. They really look out for each other, and I am convinced that is because they recognize the importance of this project from the get-go, and the importance that each and every member will be, not just the director, but down to the makeup and costume to scene selection. I also think that having the support of staff members like myself and Dr. Yox has been very beneficial for the students. Dr. Yox and I will both readily take on a role. We'll become a character or two. We'll throw on a wig and go from being an elderly grandmother or an elderly dying man to a spunky business owner or even an apparition in a dream. It adds a little bit of verb and dash, which students in turn will add to their characters because then it becomes fun for them. As with any film, we will often have bloopers, as Jalyn mentioned. I think this is where a majority of the bonding takes place because you get to be vulnerable in front of others and in front of a camera, but you also get to laugh about it. And this makes the experience even more memorable. The bed and breakfast experience is also memorable for some, but I do believe it can become an educational experience. Some of these students, especially those fresh out of high school, haven't gotten an opportunity to stay alone somewhere or even heard of a bed and breakfast. So they're responsible for their room key. They have to check in and check out and be mindful of deadlines. Aside from that, the houses provide a lot of opportunities for students to engage together. They'll have board games, movie nights, and I know of one that offers fireside s'mores in the evenings. Then of course they get to share breakfast and usually travel together to filming sites. I've noticed that these bonds have been long-lasting. Students will remain a close-knit group as they have gotten comfortable with each other and share many of the same classes. As far as leadership is concerned, I've noticed a pattern, particularly with the director and those in charge of major roles or responsibilities. These individuals will continue to seek out leadership opportunities in honor societies and other organizations on campus. When honor student council elections roll around in the fall, these same individuals will be nominated by the honors peers so that they can lead the group once again. As Dr. Yachts mentioned, when I'm writing letters of recommendation for honor students, I'm able to tell how I saw them blossom as confident, skilled leaders, researchers, and many other skills that we see pop up when we're working on the project. We then get to say how we submitted to an accredited association that won top awards. This sets them above the rest because many freshmen have not had this opportunity or even partaken in a large project such as this one. Overall, I'm thankful to see students walk away with new friends, a sense of accomplishment, a newfound courage, and a skill set and project to add to their resumes. I'd like to turn it over back to Dr. Yachts.
Thank you, Andrea. We're just going to close with just a very short film series here. We know that we're not the only program that does this. We have been able to do a feature-length film for the last 8 years, but Valparaiso University has been doing musicals for even longer than that, where the students actually produce the musicals and do every part of them. And we were on a panel with them 2 years ago, and so you see some scenes from their productions. This is our 2019 film, and you can kind of see Maritza there and Andrea, and also Jalyn. This year we're a little more circumspect, and we had to have just single rooms when we went to the B&Bs, which really are the place to film because they let you. So you can see we didn't have quite a big number on scene. In any case, we'll conclude with a look at our trailer that we had for last year's film.
And if someone needs another star, it could be even better. Oh yes, and they can make more stars with a feather to Abraham.
Unmarried and facing destitution, the granddaughter of Texas' first vice president struggled.
Mother, it's not fair. Trying to be a friend, he isn't be dazzled by the idea that grandfather was the first vice president of Texas. He is a widower, and he has money.
She now holds on to only one dream.
Yes, it was not a simple sheet of evidence of Texas. But sisters, it is the apple here in San Antonio that we must truly sanctify. We will teach future generations to glorify His defeat. We will glorify His self-sacrifice.
Will the number of obstacles?
I'm hearing some very strange things. This of all of us to purchase the Longbear, it's not to demolish it, but to celebrate it for its defeat.
I'm here to set a forward mandatory injunction for one DNA of all, pursuant to state of the Webb factory held in the chapel there.
Today I'm going to celebrate today, so we're going to find justice.
Hold your horses.
Keep her and her loved ones
I, for one, vow to help Adina secure the long barrack and the former convent, the place where the Alamo's brave defenders actually died.
Adina, we're sending you something to drink.
You and Jenny are such good friends. I know my sister's waiting to go this far.
from making one of Texas' neglected sites
Oh God, I have nothing to drink and I'm starting to shake from my unworthy dependence on coffee. Oh God in Christ, help me.
shine like a star. Starlight, Adina de Zavala, and the making of a patriotic super site, coming this February 21st to the Watley Performing Arts Center.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.